Am I now the leader here?
Congratulations, Steve.
Oh boy, here we go. There you go. You never know when you raise your hand what happens. So good morning, everyone. This is Steve Ezzies. It's Friday, October 14th, 2022, and this is the monthly financial facilities and operations committee meeting of the Weston Board of Education. The first item on the agenda is an update on facilities and ground maintenance. Mike?
Okay. How you doing, everybody?
Good.
Don't have a whole lot to report for an update. I do like to keep this line open for any kind of questions that could come up, but it's been a pretty successful first, what's it been, 6 weeks or so of school. No major issues have come up. Everything's looking really great. Basically, we're rolling. Temperatures are a little. It's a scary time for heating and trying to keep rooms cool. It's a dangerous time for heating systems, shocking boilers, just for breakage. They're very difficult temperatures, but we've been able to maintain so far. Just would like temperatures to go one way or the other. So really the only challenge that we have had in the first 6 weeks of this year is just trying to not cause damage to our heating system and not keep the classrooms too cool. Other than that, we're very thankful that we had some rain. Our grass is starting to come back. Camp's starting to look great again instead of being burned out. Buildings are looking good. And that's about all I have. I'm sure you guys have questions or on anything that we've been working on.
Yeah, I have a question. It's gonna be like a total non sequitur. It has to do with tennis courts.
Okay.
Am I correct that the tennis courts are basically built on wetlands?
Yeah, the rear of the intermediate school, middle school, high school is all wetlands. So all the wood line is wet. So it's a moving structure, I guess we can call it. And we know with our temperatures, if they would just stay at freezing for the winter, we wouldn't have the rise and fall of the frost line. So yes, it's on the wetland, so it does move. So if you have that ups and down temperature of teetering that freezing line, there's a lot more movement than if it would just freeze and stay frozen. And that's why you have all the penetrations that come up.
So we just spent some money on resurfacing the tennis courts,
right?
And given where they're, I'll get to my point of my question. Given where they're located, that resurfacing they start to crack at some point again.
It most certainly will. And we usually get a couple of years out of it, 2 to 3. Yeah. But it depends on what our winters look like. But yeah, unfortunately, the damage is done on the concrete level. So the repairs that we do are more, they try to fix the cracks. But when you reseal a crack, it's still a weak point. So it's still going to move to the same location. So yeah, whatever repairs are done are just temporary. And
so the point of the reason I asked it, Mike, and thanks, is that the town is going to build pickleball courts using ARPA money. Mm-hmm. And I did have a conversation with Jonathan Luis about where they're planning on siting the pickleball courts. Mm-hmm. And one of the which is near the Onion Barn, not on the school fields by the Onion Barn, but I guess next to them, which I thought was wet as well, but find out about that. And I suggested that an alternative, having learned about the tennis courts, is if we're going to do this, if we're going to build these pickleball courts, one of the reasons I chose the Onion Barn location is proximity to the senior center. Okay. So the question is, the field behind the central office, is that wet also? Do you know? Or
the field, you're talking like playground wise, or are you talking in the main area?
The one that's now a field, used for.
Is it? No, it's not wetlands. It's not wetlands at all.
Okay.
The wood line, not even so. So basically, our property here, what we have from playground to the road, it's definitely not wetlands.
Okay, it's kind of a nascent discussion that if we're going to build 3 or 4 pickleball courts, and we have tennis courts in a less than ideal location, should we be thinking of something, more permanent, that we're not going to be spending $30,000 a tennis court every 3 years, to
Right.
fix that are inevitable.
I mean, the only issue with putting courts on Central Office Field is going to be parking, because we definitely have to add parking to it. So it would be, how could we structure
Yeah.
the actual site for it at
Yeah.
all?
Look, this is just a really nascent conversation, but it was one that there's all kinds of of issues. Parking. What do you do? What do you do with with what those fields are currently utilized for?
Correct.
It's a much longer conversation, but it just seems that we're going to spend $100,000 every few years to fix cracks in the tennis court. We really should be thinking of a more permanent fix. And it's a facility, the tennis courts and the pickleball courts will be a facility they are tennis courts currently, but that the whole town uses. It's not just, it's not just the schools. Long conversation, but I just wanted to get your thoughts on the tennis courts.
Yeah, and as for the Onion Barn, it's not quite it's not wetlands. What we have is a septic from the South House has leaching fields over there, but
Okay.
it's never very wet. As a matter of fact, that's where the carnival goes, and all those rides are out there. We never had a problem other than when they hit one of the piping out of the pump enclosures that they broke.
Yeah.
So that's a dry area, especially down towards the Onion Barn. That's definitely dry.
Okay.
Steve, I know we tend to try to put as much as we can at the central location, but I think at some point we have to always remember that Morehouse is also available, and that is also a beautiful site, which could accommodate the pickleball court as well as the tennis court. But I think at some point we have to also, the town has to maybe look into utilizing Morehouse Field a little bit more.
Okay, that's a good thought. Just
The one, if I can just add, sorry, it was late. There was a special assembly at the intermediate school. Very exciting. Check the Instagram. One thing though that I like about the idea of putting them somewhere else, quite frankly, whether it be here where I am, is that because they're used so much more by the town than they are the schools, and then we don't have people during the school day walking through the campus and using them when we have, PE, recess, all of that. There's constant traffic of community members on our campus, and any way we could, that's sort of a consequence, a positive consequence if we got another location.
Well, let's not belabor it here, but let's let's talk about that some more, and I'll kind of circle up with Jonathan and see what his thoughts are, or Jonathan Luis, and I'll see what his thoughts are as well. But that's a good point, Lisa. One I hadn't taken into consideration. Any more questions on facilities and grounds?
Yeah, I have a question. I was just going over my notes from your extensive kind of run through last month of where things are standing, and I was just hoping you could go into a little bit more detail on what are the standards for mold in schools, and how often are we checking these things, and where do we stand in all of our buildings?
It's not exactly checked periodically, just through visual. So if we ever have a concern, we have a company that comes in, we do testing. But as for just a generic or just general routine mold testing, that we don't have on the table.
Okay, how do we compare what the standards are for the state with what is found in any buildings? What is the process for what happens if you have a concern or you see something, or what do we do?
I can jump on that one.
Yeah, thanks.
So in terms of the testing and what we do, as Mike mentioned, we do have a company that do provide the testing. So if we do have a sense that we have mold in any one of our location, we'll definitely go with this company. And we do have a company that will advise us in terms of to ensure that we're following protocols if the levels exceed the normal levels. So I think it's not necessarily that it's a statewide level. It's just whatever the standard is.
Okay. So, and that's something that's routinely monitored, or is only if we call them to have them come in?
Correct. So if we do suspect, I think there isn't a requirement that you do check periodically for mold, because mold just in general is in the environment. But if we do suspect from a visual inspection or by smell that there is mold in any given location, we will definitely do that testing. And a lot of it has to do with the level of humidity and stuff that we may have in any given space.
Okay, well, when is the last time we've done any checks in our buildings?
The most recent one was done this past August.
August.
Because we do have visual inspection in the North House at Hurlbut.
Okay.
So our most recent inspection was done at Hurlbut, and we were within levels.
You were within levels.
Correct, acceptable levels. Correct.
Okay.
And we've been monitoring that situation, correct, Phil? It wasn't just this past August.
That is correct. So we did it prior as well.
Ongoing monitoring of that particular situation.
Right. And I think what happened this past summer, which will definitely improve on it, maybe you can just give a quick update in terms of the changes. I know you spoke about it at the last meeting, but in terms of that central, you know what I'm talking about, with the ventilation?
Yeah, there's a general makeup air unit that hits every classroom, all the hallways. So that was clean, but the ductwork cleaning. So the ventilation is tremendous in the North House at this point. With the air conditioning that we had on, we were able to get the AC onto that gym. So the actual indoor air quality, and that's the North House space, has turned around 100%. It's a really comfortable place to work.
Okay.
I do have one quick update for you guys that we've been working on. We had a leak come through South House for the elementary school. What we have is each classroom has its own bathroom. So each back-to-back classroom has back-to-back bathrooms that are set off to the rear of the classroom. We came in on yesterday morning to find that we had a broken pipe inside the block wall that was leaking water into the two bathrooms, into the common area that goes to the exit and into the two classrooms. So for the last couple of days, obviously not in school time, but after hours, before hours, we've been breaking through the block wall concrete and trying to locate the leak. We located the leak this morning. So hopes are get at least one of those bathrooms back on by Monday and get the next bathroom opened up by the following Monday, because we do have to we have to repair that wall before we can set the fixtures. So that happened yesterday morning. There was a contractor in the senior center yesterday. They've been doing a renovation for their back-to-back bathroom. As you know, the South House was half senior center, half elementary school. It's designed the exact same way. So they had a contractor in there who actually broke a pipe while they were doing some of their demo. We hopped on it immediately. As soon as we got the phone call, we were able to isolate the leak. They were able to call their plumber back in, who was doing the actual contracting work, and that repair has been rectified, and they've been doing their cleanup.
And I think this sort of kind of ties into the larger projects that we have. We do have an approved budget to a capital budget to do some consulting work. Mike, you want to talk about what your plans are for the Hurlbut?
Yeah, we initially had the line item for capital to go middle school and elementary school, but with what's happened here in the classroom side, it's not going to be an isolated incident. This is 1960s. It's original piping. Yeah, the floor may have been changed, fixtures may have been changed, but all that piping that comes through the concrete has not been changed. And in 1960, when the building was built, codes were different. You were able to do different things. So you have all the lime and all the acidicness of the concrete that's starting to eat away at the copper pipe. So I think I would like to focus this capital on really jumping on specifically the South House, those 8 classrooms. And there's there are 2 individual bathrooms I would really like to have this analysis done to specifically, and concentrate this hopefully this summer for a summer project to have these bathrooms renovated.
Was the work on that you described over the last few days, that done by our people, or was it done externally?
Yeah, the senior center's done by contractors, the broken pipe that they had stepped on. The actual work that's being done in our side in the classroom is our maintenance team.
Okay.
We have the the licensed tradesmen to be able to do the work. So we've been concentrating on that for the last couple of days.
Great. Cool. Anyone else? Should we move on to number 2, the HVAC grant discussion?
Hold on one quick second.
Sure.
Okay, here we go. Computer just went out. At the last meeting, Peter had alluded to that there was a grant available or will become available for HVAC work. A grant is available, and there was a law passed in July 1. So there's approximately $150 million, and this is a competitive grant. There's a few criteria that's going to be, well, a few things. This grant submission is due December 1st. As I mentioned, it is a competitive grant, and there's a few requirements or a few things that will need to happen before you submit the grant. And I think chief among them is, one, we would have to secure funding, the local funded by the Board of Finance and I guess the Board of Selectmen. And also this grant or this work will have to be done via a formal competitive bid process. Given the timeline that we have and how tight the timeline is, and not to mention that we also need to have the referendum for these kind of projects. So given the timeline, we do not believe that we will be able to, any projects that we have, that we will be able to meet the timeline of December 1st to apply for this grant. In terms from a reimbursement perspective, this is similar to the reimbursement for the construction grant, and our reimbursement level is currently at 22.14%. At this point, we only have 2 projects which we think are pretty much ready to go, which would be the HVAC for the weight room and for the dance studios, which was already approved for the capital budget, and also a replacement of a air handler at the high school. There's 2 other major projects that is on our capital that we have to do the legwork on, and this is one will be the mirroring of C and D wing to E wing, and also the North House HVAC system replacement as well. So I just wanted to have a discussion to see where the committee is and if we should pursue this or what you guys are thinking.
Tell me the reasons why we would not pursue it.
One is really timing. One, we would need to get the engineering work done because we really don't have any work on that. And to get the engineer, Steve, as you saw in the meeting last night, more than likely we would need to do an RFP to get the engineer.
Right.
That by itself will take a few weeks. Then we'll need to have the discussion. I mean, they can be concurrent with the Board of Finance as well. And then after that, we would also need to do the bid. So I think it's more so from the timeline perspective than anything else. And not only that, given as well the broader projects that will be coming at us for all the restructuring that may happen on the campus. If the committee would like us to move forward with this, we can start the process and see if we could get there. But it's going to pretty much be taking all of our time between now and December 1. Mike, any thoughts on this?
The 2 extensive ones are going to be definitely difficult. The first 2, the C5 and the weight room dance studio, we've already have been in discussion with the building committee and a mechanical contractor. So we do have a plan in place. So I think we can move forward with this one. I would speak with Jonathan today and try to call a building committee meeting and sit down and see how we can move forward with this. Since it is capital, I do have to involve the committee and Jonathan and just see how quickly we can get this ball rolling and move forward. But the other 2, I just don't think we physically have the time. And even if we were able to pull off the miracle, we would be definitely neglecting other duties that we have on campus because it would take a lot of our time, if not all of it.
So that, just so I can understand this properly, what are the costs to the district of the projects that we're talking about, and what is the amount of money in play with respect to the grant? Is it full funding? Is it partial funding? Do we have any idea how competitive it is and what our chances are if we apply for it this year? Are we precluded from applying for it in future years? Could you speak a little bit about the process?
You're muted, Phil.
Thank you. This is a one-off, so this is not going to continue for future years. So this is just 150 that's available right now. In terms of how competitive it will be, our understanding is that it's going to be pretty much the schools or the district or the municipalities that have the most complete grant application. Those will be the ones that will be awarded first. In terms of the reimbursement, it's going to be similar to a school construction grant. And the reimbursement is, let's call it an 80-20 split. We would have to fund 80% of the cost, and we would be reimbursed 20%.
And you said that there was 22% reimbursement already. Are you talking about for that existing grant, or is this something we've secured separately for the project?
No, the 22.14% is the reimbursement rate.
Okay. The reimbursement rate for this grant.
For this grant, correct. And this rate is similar to the construction grant.
Well, I guess from what you might have said, as much as we may want to do this, it would be time prohibitive for yourselves, given everything else that you have on your plate.
That is correct.
With no guarantee we get the grant.
Correct. And again, and it will also, I'm assuming it will also require extensive conversations with the other boards, the Board of Selectmen and the Board of Finance as well, just to get this approval. I'm not quite sure if the Board of Selectmen would need to be involved, but definitely with the Board of Finance. Now we can start it, right? Because we do have money. We do have money allocated to us. I mean, we can try to see if we can try to get something done. I did outline in the memo all the things that would be required. We would require a long-term plan, like a master facilities plan. I don't necessarily think that we have that. We may be able to use the work from Tecton to see if that will allow us to get it done. I don't necessarily want to say that we don't want to try to get it done. I just want everyone just to be aware of it, that if we try to get it done, it really is going to be a little bit on the prohibitive side from a timing perspective. Now we do have money in the current year's budget if we want to, because we would have to form the building committee, get the building committee involved, and start that process. So because we have the money, we can at least start the process and see where we land. If that would make committee.
It's more. I mean, I hear from you and Mike that you would effectively have to drop everything and start working on this. And is that a good use of your time? I mean, the money's obviously one thing, but time allocation is another, and obligations you have right now. Isn't that really the gating issue? I mean, if it's a question of a supplemental appropriation, we can have that discussion ahead of time. But if you're going to have to put some things aside that you were planning on doing to address this, sounds like you would rather go forward with what you currently have that you're already dealing with.
Yeah, the mirroring of C-Wing and D-Wing to match E-Wing, just to give you a perspective, I believe it was $1.5 million to do 13 classrooms back in 2015 or 16. So with the cost of projects now, you can minimally double that. So are we going to be okayed for that and have the project completed by the time the complete date is for the grant and have all this work done? It's a big project. Obviously the work can be done, but the funding is going to be the issue. This could be up near to the $4 million range.
Mike, do you remember when is the completion date? Do you remember when that was?
December 31, 2004, done by January 1, 2025, sorry.
All right. You know what? It's just, I think, Mike, you're going to have a meeting with the building committee hopefully by next week.
I'm hoping for Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, somewhere in that window.
All right, let's have we'll bring forth these items with the building committee to get their take on it. And again, we may need to get it, and let's see where we land and where we are. And we will, and if we can get an application in by that date, we will do our very best if we can minimize the disruption to the district and to everything else that we have going on. I also want to point out that each application is going to be independent. So we would need to submit four grant application because it's not a district-wide application.
Okay, that only accentuates what I just said about
Right.
your time.
Correct. But I think we need to have that discussion anyway, at least if not for this grant, but just for the broader capital projects in terms of getting the consultant and getting whatever work and the engineering work done. And we have the money approved for that. So we could start it and we'll see where we land. If we can get something done, we will, but we're saying that we may be restricted because of time.
Okay,
I think that's a reasonable approach.
you good, Melissa?
Yeah, I think that's a reasonable approach. See what you can do. I mean, even if one gets submitted, that we don't need to do all four if you're precluded by time. But let's see where you land. We don't want to hamstring the district and other important things that are going on as well.
All right, we will move forward with that.
Right. You also
Peter,
see,
anything?
yeah, I mean, it's always timing, right? So you have two dynamics. You have work that Mike's doing now that probably isn't applicable. Then you have what Phil referred to, sort of something that's in the vault that you may be able to bring out, freshen up, and see at least that one building, if not all four, is just viable, right? The exercise will be helpful, and hopefully, as Steve has said, it'll be not just burning time on something that won't come to fruition, but I think what Phil described is viable. Just use something from the vault, see if we can submit that if it's plausible, and try to get something done.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
Okay. We're going to move on to item number 3. Is there anything more, Phil or Mike?
Not for me.
Thank you.
Great. Well,
Thanks,
thank you.
Phil.
No worries, thank you.
So item number 3 is the monthly financial update through September of this year.
Not a lot to report for this month. Just want to bring the attention a few items, just maybe 3 items. We do have a budget transfer, pretty much just to true up our accounts. We need to move $61,000 from the admin line to the guidance line. And this is for the district school counselor. We decided this year not to move forward with that position. So just to have the accounts reflecting what the true cost is. We're
Psychologist.
Thank you. No, not a district-wide psychologist, Lisa. The counselor.
I'm sorry.
Yep, the counselor.
Sorry.
So this is just to true up the account. The other thing here, last month I did mention that we would give an update as to where we are from a from overall salary. We have salary savings to the tune of $35,868, and that is primarily attributed to turnover savings. I did outline that we did have, we're pretty much at budget for degree level changes, and pretty much a little bit savings for turnover savings. At this point, we do still have some positions that we're hoping to fill. But those are not reflected in these numbers. The other item that I want to talk about is athletic charters. I think we spoke last month about the need to use an additional transportation provider. Based on where we are right now, we do anticipate that will cost us an additional $51,000 if we continue the way we are for the remainder of the year. Just so that the committee is aware, there is really pressures on just from other sectors requiring drivers, and some of these companies are paying significantly more to have these drivers drive for them. So if people have to make a decision as to whether or not they drive for company A or company B, they may make a decision to go to the company that is paying them more money. And we cannot compete with those companies because it's going to be at a significant cost to us. We are at a good place with our school bus drivers, but of course, given at any given day things could change. For example, one day this week we had 3 drivers that were out, so it becomes a little bit difficult to combine runs similar to what we did last year. We really don't want to do that because there was a lot of disruption, not only to the staff, but also to the broader community. If one of these days, if you can just swing by at Hurlbut just to see what it's like to get kids dismissed, and you'll have a sense as to why we made the decisions not to combine buses more than how they similar to what we did last year. So again, it's just to give a heads up that we're going to be over. The good news is that this will be offset by savings by a credit that we're going to have from last year. We're going to have a credit of $89,000, and this is the credits for runs that did not operate last year for the second half because we had to combine runs.
So do you see this as a trend that's just going to continue forever? I mean, is this something that, budgeting going forward, we have to know that athletic charters after school are just going to be more expensive, and that our school buses are not a viable option for getting kids to games and matches and things that are away from the district?
Yeah. So it's 2 parts. Do I see this as continuing for future years? Yes, definitely. I definitely see the trend continuing. Just for clarity, in terms of the charters, so these charters are primarily used for the charters that will disrupt the second tier run, which is the Hurlbut run, which starts at about 3:15. All the charters that starts after that, which are at about 4:30, we do use First students for that, and all the charters that need to happen on the weekends, we do use First students for that. So this again, yes, we will definitely need to include this going forward in the budget for charters. And again, this is not a situation that is isolated to Weston.
Right.
As if you're ever in the parking lot at the high school, you'll have a sense as to who's what. There's not a lot of school buses.
No, there aren't. I've noticed that, in fact.
Yes, it's a lot of private charters.
Yeah, even just multiple times I've noticed that. Okay.
Yep.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. I guess it would be impossible, but there's no way to look into, pooling our resources with our neighboring districts that are having similar problems and maybe kind of doing a collective approach. I mean, everybody's going different places for different things at different times. It's probably an impossibility.
Yeah, that's pretty much what it is. And they're all in the same boat, and everyone is trying to draw on the same drivers. And again, as you said, that everyone is going to a different place, which makes it a little bit difficult.
Yeah.
There's another interesting perspective that I got when I spoke to one of our subcontractors out, and he said that you either get buses and no drivers, or drivers and no buses. And he was explaining how, and I never even thought of this. He goes, it's going to get worse before it gets better because of the big Amazon facility that's opening up in Danbury, and they're hiring all these drivers, and all these drivers can make more money. They can get better benefits. He said, be prepared. This isn't going away. He goes, I see it all the time. They have tried everything. He is networking all over the East Coast to try to help us. And it's crazy. I mean, when I was talking to him about things, I said, my goodness, this is crazy. I mean, they met with Westport. They've tried to look at things. It's a mess.
Yeah, it's a nationwide problem. I mean, first of all, I was on the board of directors of the largest school bus transportation company in New York City for a few years, and they also did Los Angeles. This is a problem that's been ongoing for years. I mean, it just doesn't, it's just not in this environment an attractive job, and it's particularly there's just, to Lisa's point, they're higher paying positions elsewhere, and I didn't even think about the Amazon facility going up in Danbury. It's it's going to be a challenge. And I guess, the only way to maybe mitigate it is not have this requirement that we have to have a seat for every student. Right? I mean, if you knew you didn't have to provide the capacity, maybe that makes it a little bit easier.
I think it's the law, isn't it?
Yeah,
No, that's
it
right.
is.
It's a law, but
Yeah, I hear you.
But Steve,
that's something we're going to change.
no. But from our perspective in terms of using data, as I mentioned before, we use COVID and we use what we learned from COVID, and we know that we could operate with less vehicles. So starting this year, we have reduced our fleet by 1. So we're operating with 21 buses, and that has been working out for us. I mean, we do have increased ridership, and it could be because we took a bus offline, but we operate with 21 buses. And again, because of the timing between our tiers, right? Because we use the same buses for the high school, middle school that we use for the lower schools. The timing between tiers is roughly 4 to 5 minutes. So from dismissal to the next pickup is 4 to 5 minutes. So taking additional buses offline could prove problematic. We do get a lot of requests from families seeking and are requesting a lot of accommodations, and it does get a little bit difficult to accommodate all the requests that we have, just because of the time. But it's not because of the capacity within the bus per se. It's really just because of the timing that we have between each tiers that we cannot accommodate all the requests that we have for special accommodations.
What's an example of a special accommodation?
Sure. A special accommodation would mean that someone may want to stop directly in front of their house and not at a community stop. A special accommodation would mean that I want my student to ride a different bus in the afternoons as opposed to in the mornings, and we need to have a special stop made. So those are some of the examples that we get. Or can we bring the school to some after school activity? I know we at one point we had a request for Morehouse. We couldn't accommodate in a stop at Morehouse because we don't have a bus that goes within the route. But we were able to make some accommodation. And again, if we have a bus that's passing there, we have no problem making that as long as it doesn't cause a disruption to the home to school transportation. So we have to always just be mindful of all these things.
Okay. So anyway, sorry, I've lost my train of thought. Is that the financial update? Are we there?
That is it. And in terms of the dental claims, we're trending as anticipated.
Great. Peter, Melissa?
I just had one other question, just because, we talked about it last month. Do we have any update on the special ed PPS hiring that would have any kind of impact? Have we been successful in hiring anybody?
We have not been successful in hiring anyone. However, there has been some interest, and we are continually working on it.
Okay. And we have out postings both in terms of clerical and administrative, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Right. Yeah.
Keep
I
our
was just
fingers
going to
crossed.
follow up. I was just going to follow up and see how general hiring is doing. I may have missed that when Phil began. Are we putting our staff in place where they need to be in place to reduce construction and things like that? Are we still coming up a couple of people short, like where we ended last year?
We are, as far as with teachers, we are looking for a special education teacher because the special education teacher is going to be moving into a tier 2 intervention position at the high school. That's recent development, which is a good thing. And again, it's very, I don't want to say too much because it's during the school year. It's, if you're taking people that are actively employed in other districts, it gets tricky. But we need a special education teacher. And we also need 2 paraprofessionals at the middle school. We successfully hired 1, but we still need 2 paraprofessionals at the middle school. We have, those are probably the key ones along with the administrative and clerical. It has been challenging. You're not
Lisa,
going to hire a warm body, quite frankly. So,
yeah, Lisa, would you agree that we're in a better place this year than
we're in a
last
much
year?
better place. I don't want, please. I think we're in a much better place. People have stepped up. I want to thank community members who have said, we have some lovely retired woman, Barbara Gross, who said, sure, I'll help out and work in the cafeteria at the intermediate school. She's a rock star over there every day. We have a gentleman who saw the signs about bus drivers. He's a parent in town. He works from home. And he said, you know what? I can help you drive the bus in the morning and the afternoon. And he stepped up. So we're in a much, much better place than we were, I would say, last year.
That's an important input.
We are still looking, though.
Right. I mean, it's a qualified. We're doing really good, but we still need a few more great hires, and then we'll be sitting pretty.
Exactly. So if anyone, we are constantly networking. We also need subs. We have a new sub that joined. We met her at one of the sporting events and talked to her. Everywhere we go, we're networking. All of the administrators, people that work in the building, the athletic director, the assistant to the athletic director, anywhere we find public places, oh, hey, have you thought about this? Do you know someone that would like to do this? Along with, of course, posting, talking about it. I mean, we talk about it probably 3 times a week. So we're on top of it. Hopefully next month we'll have some even better news.
All right. I look forward to it.
Thank you.
Should we move on to the fiscal 24 budget calendar?
Lisa, do you want to take this one?
The
Budget
calendar? I don't.
Yeah.
I know that I sat down with you and Andrew and we went through it. Why don't you?
Yeah, I think this is really just the standard calendar, the standard dates that we have, and we're pretty much just rolled it. I think Lisa just added a few more dates just for specific meetings. So I guess this is just for the committee to review and offer and see if we have any questions in terms of dates or if there's anything that we want to change or add.
Yeah, I would just add really quickly at the front. I added a few more dates to be so everyone could see how the building and central office team is working. So we are, we're meeting the 19th. We're meeting the 16th to finalize things. We're meeting the 14th to talk about the presentation and the budget. Those are all both district leadership and also principal and central office leadership. And actually on the 19th of this month, our principals meeting is dedicated to that as well. So as far as the rest of the schedule goes, there hasn't been any other change. We just clarified when it's the Google Meet, we're starting at 6 p.m.
Okay.
I also think that last year we did something that we didn't really codify it in the calendar, but we have certain dates where we say, give us questions, and then we'll answer all our questions by mid January, that they all have to be answered by then. But last year I thought we really tried to proactively answer them along the way, get as many questions answered and not wait till that final date as possible. So at each workshop, if we can get the answers quicker, we went over them. And I think that also helped to facilitate the process.
I'm just
I guess
looking at. Oh, go ahead, Steve.
No. Go ahead, Melissa. Go ahead.
I see the one workshop for the community. Am I misremembering? I thought we had two.
Couple.
Yeah, one earlier in the process and then one towards the end. I can't. Did anybody compare this to last year's?
I think you're right. I think there were.
Yes.
There was two. Yeah.
We'll double check, but I'm trying to remember if we took one of those meetings off last year, because this is pretty much the same calendar that we had last year, and we pretty much just rolled the dates.
It's possible that we had a board meeting where we had a lot of questions, and so maybe we took it off. I can't remember, but I think I would suggest having two with the public scheduled. If it turns out that we end up, they all come to PTO meetings and no one shows up for one, and we can certainly adjourn it. But
Right.
I think we want to have two opportunities for the public, and also, wasn't there a mechanism where the board went the budget went to the PTOs too, without it coming to involving the board, where they could, discuss it kind of more informally and casually, and then come to the board after that with questions that weren't answered in their informal presentation? Or did we change that?
I don't remember. I thought, Phil, this calendar mimicked last year's.
It does.
Okay.
It does.
So we can certainly look. I met with the PTO presidents yesterday. I'm meeting with them on Thursdays. We can certainly look to see if. So let me just make sure I'm clear. So we present on the 6th. No, the 5th is the presentation. The 6th is the first workshop. Then we have other workshops. But you're saying, Melissa, that
I was saying that I see the presentation, the public forum on the 19th.
Correct.
And then the vote is usually scheduled the end of January, right?
26th.
The 26th. Yeah. So I think there might need to be an earlier, if we're going to have the 17th be, or the 19th, excuse me, the 19th be an open forum for parents in the community to share comments and ask questions. That's after our monthly meeting on the 17th.
Correct.
So I think there might need to be something more preliminary towards the front end.
Yep.
So
I'd like to keep this as transparent as as we can.
Yeah.
I mean, it is transparent, but I think I was always under the impression there were two public meetings in the past.
Okay.
And this is when we were meeting. This is pre-COVID, because I remember going to a couple in the library. Yeah.
What we'll do then, we will look at the 2021 calendars to see what we had then, and then we'll sort of kind of mimic those dates, and then we can have another discussion at the board meeting, Lisa, and
yeah, I would say something close to the 6th, shortly after the 6th, because the way I look at it is, I think it's most helpful to us as a district and also to us as a board, if we can hear from the public initially, right? And then further along in the process when things are a little bit more refined, because
yeah, sure.
I mean, it's to everyone's best interest to get the information and the concerns and the questions up front as soon as possible, rather than,
Okay, so we'll look at the dates between January 6th and January 19th to provide another opportunity via Zoom.
Yeah. That might be,
Well-
is the one on the 19th in
The
person?
vote is on the 26th. Oh,
No,
no,
but the public,
24th.
The 19th, I believe the 19th isn't public.
The
No,
19th is on Google.
it's a virtual meeting.
It says Google Meet. That's why
Yeah.
I'm asking.
I mean, my thought would be that there are people, especially on hot topics like the budget, that will want to be in person. I also think that there are people that work in the city, that are commuting, that have
Sure.
challenging schedules and appreciate the Google Meet. So, I mean, my initial thought would be, can we do one in person and one
Yeah.
Google Meet?
That's what I'm wondering.
That way, everybody gets the opportunity to be heard in the manner in which they want to be heard.
So if we did want it, I don't want to come across as not wanting to hold in-person meetings. But if we hold an in-person meeting, does that preclude people asking questions online? Or are we only taking questions from people who are in the room?
I think we could allow
Hybrid-
questions to be read
hy-
that were submitted.
Because hybrid meetings just don't work.
Yeah, in the past, I believe we read questions
We did.
that could have been submitted, so we can wasn't it my clerk or whatever, the board,
Yeah.
Jody, that read the
Meredith.
question?
Jody did and Meredith did. Yeah, I remember that.
I think that was prior when this was virtual. I think when we read the questions. So this was initially when we started to meet virtually, and we didn't have the mechanism in place for the public to speak. I think for those instances, that's when the questions were read. We would have to, the challenge, I think, we would need to figure out, how do we communicate that to the community that we're going to be, that you can submit your questions to be read at a public meeting. So we would have to work that out for whatever that public meeting would be.
See, here's why here's why online meetings are more effective. That doesn't work. Submit your questions ahead of time. People are going to have questions as they hear what's going on, not ahead of time, because that's going to require them to do some studying, which they may or may not do. So if it's we already know, we are more effective. At least it gives you the option. And so, I mean, I like the board, our overall board, to opine on this.
Yeah, I
But
think
if
we
it
should.
was me, I do it online because we know we get better attendance, and we know that's the case for other boards and commissions. It's easier to schedule, more people attend, it's more interactive.
I agree with everything you're saying. It's just that just having gone through the budget cycle a few years with the Board of Ed, when there are, and this is why I think the in-person one should probably be. Let's have the discussion as a full board, but before I say my personal opinion,
Well,
but I do think that there are issues that come up in the budget process where people feel very strongly about them, and they want to have that face-to-face communication. I've seen it every year.
Yeah. And there are other communities who have decided not to do that.
Yeah.
That all meetings will be remote.
May I make a suggestion? Why don't we identify another date? We will just put that it is the meeting, and then the full board can discuss how both of those meetings will be. If you want to do both remote, you want to whatever, but at least we will identify. I think we're in agreement that we need another date to provide people another opportunity. So we will work on that piece. That's very easy to do. I will also, we always present at the PTOs. We go to the PTOs and we talk to the PTOs. So we're still happy to do that. I've already looked at the dates when we need to make sure that the staff is in the loop on all of this, which is also important. So we will do that. And so what we are going to do at the board meeting is that we are going to look at the budget calendar and vote, I guess, on or approve the budget calendar. We're not going to do that for the budget assumptions until the following month because some of the assumptions are tied to the contract that you are ratifying, if that makes sense. Okay. So we kind of split it into two pieces. Thanks to Mr. Cross's good thinking. So, and that will be, you know, that's how we'll handle that. And then we can talk at that point about the specifics about how you want to handle the in-person versus remote. And that also will come out of the committee report on communications as far as the overall schedule and which have been designated as remote and in-person.
Great.
Okay.
Sounds like a good plan.
Thank you.
So do we want to review the budget assumptions or are we going?
I do want to discuss one item, only one
Okay.
item, just for the budget, just because we have pretty much started the process for the budget, and that has to do with an increase for goods and services. Typically or historically, we have pegged that increase to the CPI. I would recommend that we not peg it to CPI for this year, and would go with maybe a 3.5% increase. The CPI numbers that we're getting for last year, as of yesterday, for the Northeast is at 7.2%, and without if you exclude food and energy from that, we're at 5.4%. I think a 3.5% increase would be adequate. And if there's a need, what I don't want it to do is to increase the cost of goods and services, and then find us that we may have to do but a reduction, and then cut into supplies and stuff like that on the back end. I think if we go with something a more conservative increase, that'll put us in a better place.
I think that makes sense.
Yeah, that's fine.
All right, so we will roll forward with the 3.5%, and then we will bring the broader assumptions at the November meeting.
Okay.
So the last item is the approval of the minutes, but before we do that, Peter, one of the conversations that Melissa, Lisa, and I have been having is the next phase of the facilities planning, because now the ball is back in our court in terms of the facilities optimization committee has provided all their work, but now it's up to us to determine what we think is best for the configuration, not only of the buildings, but what's going to go on in the interior of the building, which hasn't been addressed. And concurrently, the Board of Finance is going through a process of determining what the bonding capability is of Weston. They had a discussion, so this is being done by Ron Baldwin, Mike Nestor, and Jeff Farr. So they made a preliminary presentation to the Board of Finance last night. I'll send it around because I have the slides and Melissa and I had a conversation with Ron about this earlier this week on what the town can afford under a whole bunch of different parameters, and how we would phase the bonding of projects. I think, Melissa, that from the conversation with Rome is they're thinking that the first project would be the middle school. I'm not sure that that's what the Board of Education wants. So long-winded way of saying that Peter, that we've had this conversation about putting together the next phase of this study, which would include members of the Board of Education, of the board, of our board, members of the administration, and principals, and members of the public.
Yeah, excellent.
So from a timing point of view, there's some timing issues in it. And the key timing issue is June of every year, because as we were told, you have to submit. Mike, you may know a lot more about this than I do. It's not full plans, but if you're going to go for reimbursement from from the state, it has to be submitted by June, and the next window is next June. So it's not a rolling date. So
Right.
we're going to have to determine as a board whether or not, if we started it today, whether we would be in a position by the middle of next year to have a plan in place to be able to go for for whatever state funding we're going to ask for. Because if we're not, then the next window is a year later. So there's a lot to discuss about this, because it seems to me between the budget beginning and everything else that's going on, that this June 2023 date to have everything finalized seems aggressive. I don't know how other people feel about that, but certainly from an administration point of view, it's going to be a lot. It's going to be a lot of work. In parallel with what the administration is going to be doing, getting the budget in place for the upcoming fiscal year. Do you want to add anything to that, Melissa?
No, I mean, I think you've highlighted all the important issues. I would just say that, I think the Facilities Optimization Committee has done some good work. But I think the process really needs to be driven by education and what's best and how we should model education going forward, next generation education for the children of Weston. And it's going to take as long as it takes to get it right. I don't want to be forced into premature decisions by deadlines. So I don't think June should be a scary date for us. I think we need to look at it thoroughly and determine what we want to do and how we want to go about it. And if it goes beyond June, then we look at June of the following year.
Right. I feel exactly the same way.
Are you seeking my opinion on this? I concur, and I would say there's multiple forcing functions. One, and this is Mike's domain of expertise, we don't want to not do things, and we want to avert any undue, environmental or structural problems that arise, right? So I agree, you don't want to be forced by a deadline of a date, but you still have to be cognizant that you want to start doing things because your buildings, are demanding things are done, right? I don't know if I said it exactly right, but they might not give you the luxury of waiting too long. I guess that's another way of saying it. But I concur. I mean, I think I coined it the EOC instead of the FOC. Educational optimism. The educational optimism, right? Because E precedes F in the alphabet, so that seems like the right order anyway. Anyway, good. Thank you. I appreciate the summary.
Okay, and I'll circulate the study that the Board of Finance gave out yesterday. There's a lot of interesting statistics in it. I think what the takeaway from it is they believe the optimal amount of debt that can be taken on by the town now or initially is a number no more than $60 million. So and then it gets into a discussion of, let's assume that's the number, and it's based on the Tecton study as it relates to how the middle school is handled, but I'm not sure that that should, it's a number. It's a number we have to work with, but I don't think
Right.
we may necessarily believe that the middle school is the most immediate need, and that's a determination that the Board of Education has to make. We just don't know. I
Understood.
mean,
Okay.
I'm not sure
Yeah.
it is or it is saying that, it's now up to us to come up with what we think the optimal configuration is and what we should be addressing first, because we know, all the buildings need attention, some later than others.
Well, you set the parameters, right? So that's good.
Yeah. Yeah.
All
And,
right.
and we're working closely with the Board of Finance. It's not they're going to put a number out and say, okay, this is what you have. I mean, we've had a good fulsome conversation with Roan, and that'll continue. I mean, it's and they're going to continue. They didn't present any final number last night. It's a process that they're going through. They recognize it's kind of iterative. We're going to come to an optimal number, and given the importance of it, we should be doing it, in conjunction with all the interested parties in town. All right, so we're going to just approve the minutes for our last meeting. Are there any changes, or Melissa, if you
None
want to
here.
make a motion?
Yeah, I move to approve the minutes from the Facility and Finance Committee's September meeting.
Great. Is there a second, Peter?
I second.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Great. Is there anything else we should be discussing this morning?
I just want to say we're going to add, based on this discussion now, we'll probably should add a standing item just for facility optimization discussion. So we'll
No. Educational optimization.
We will definitely do that to the agenda item going forward.
Yeah, no, that's great. That's really great.
Okay.
It's really exciting. Oh, and just so you know, Melissa knows, Peter, so the Democrats have come up with a candidate to replace Tony. And their name is Lisa Luft. Our Lisa knows Lisa. Lisa is a educator, 28-year educator in the New York City school system, and she's going to be put forward at the next Board of Selectmen meeting.
Great.
Great. Yeah. All hands on board.
Yeah, it's all good.
That's what we want.
So do I have a motion? If there's nothing else, do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Peter?
I second.
Okay, all those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Thanks, everybody.
And I.
Okay.
Have a
All right.
great day.
Thank you.
Thank
Have a great weekend,
Take care, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Good weekend.
Bye.